My name is Paige Glenn, and I'm doing The Tiger Rising by Kate DiCamillo, and I'm reading chapter 7. It turned out to be extraordinary day in almost every possible way. Started out with finding the tiger, and ended with Sistine Bailey sitting down next to him on the bus. On the way home from school, her dress was torn and muddy. There was a scrape down her right arm, and her hair stuck out in 100 different directions. She sat down in her empty seat beside him and stared at him with her black eyes. There isn't any place to sit, she said to him. There is the last empty seat. Rob shrugged. It's not like I want to sit here, she said. Okay, said Rob. He shrugged his shoulders again. He hoped that she wasn't going to thank him for saving her. What's your name? She demanded. Rob Horton, he told her. Well, let me tell you something, Rob Horton. You shouldn't run. That's what they want you to do. Run. Rob stared at her with his mouth open. She stared back. I hate it here, she said, looking away from him, her voice even deeper than before. There is a stupid hick town with stupid hick teachers. Nobody in this whole school even knows what the Sistine Chapel is. I know, said Rob. I know what the Sistine Chapel is. Oh no. Immediately he regretted saying it. It was his policy not to say things, but it was a policy he was having a hard time maintaining around Sistine. I bet Sistine sneered at him. I bet you know it's a picture of God making the world, he said. Sistine stared at him hard. She narrowed her small eyes until they almost disappeared. It's in Italy, said Rob. The picture was painted on the ceiling, the frescoes. It was if a magician was to cast spell over him. He opened his mouth and the words fell out. Here, one on top of the other. I like gold coins. He couldn't stop talking. I don't got to go to school on account of my legs. I got a note that says, so, Mr. Palmer, he's the principal. He says that parents are worried about what I got is contagious. That means the other kids could catch it. I know what contagious means, Sistine said. She looked at his legs, and then she did something truly outstanding. She closed her eyes and reached out her left hand and placed it on top of Rob's right leg. Please let me catch it, she whispered. You won't, said Rob, surprised at her hand, how small it was and how warm it made him think for a minute of his mother's hand. Tiny and soft, he stopped that thought. It ain't contagious, he told her. Please let me catch it, Sistine whispered again, annoying him, keeping her hand on his leg. Please let me catch it so I won't have to go to school. It ain't a disease, said Rob. Shut up, Sistine said. She sat up very straight. Her lips moved. The other kids sat up, shouted and screamed and laughed and called to each other, but two of them sat apart from it all, as though sea was an island in the sea of sweat and exhaust. Sistine opened her eyes. She took her hand away and rubbed it up and down her legs. You're crazy, Bob told her. Where do you live? Sistine asked her, rubbing her hand over her legs. In the motel in the Kentucky store. You live in a motel, she said, looking up on him. It ain't permanent, he told her. It's just until we get back on our feet. Sistine stared at him. I'll bring you your homework. She said, I'll bring it to you at the motel. She said, I don't want my homework, he told her. So said Sistine. By then, Norton and Billy, three Mongo, had spotted them sitting together and they were moving in. Rob was relieved when the first thump came back of his head because it meant that he wouldn't have to talk to Sistine anymore. It meant that he wouldn't end up saying too much, telling her he was glad almost that Norton and Billy were there to beat him into silence. I'm finished.